Everyone, I'm Dino Bidala, and welcome to tonight's Dino Bidala Show on Sirius XM Channel 127, Thursday, October 21st. Here's the reality, and you know it. Every single day, the GOP reminds us it is no longer a political party. It is an autocratic/fascist movement. Today is no exception to that. And yesterday was no exception to that as well. Yesterday, what did we see? Not one Republican voted in the Senate to even allow a debate on the Freedom to Vote Act, which would provide protections for voting, get rid of partisan gerrymandering. They wouldn't even allow a vote. Zero Republicans voted to even allow a debate on that. That's the autocratic part of the GOP. You have right now 19 states have passed 33 laws since January. It's 19 GOP-controlled states passed 33 laws since January to make it harder to vote, and in some cases, make it easier to overturn election results they don't like. So that's autocracy. Fascism is when you add violence and the embrace of violence to undemocratic means to gather and acquire power. That's what the GOP is about now, today. Today, there was a vote to hold Steve Bannon in contempt in the full House for refusing to comply with the January 6th committee. And clearly, as I went through my show yesterday, and I'm sure you've seen other reports, Steve Bannon was an integral part of the planning of the January 6th terrorist attack. He was speaking to Trump in the weeks leading up to it. On his podcast, he was using violent rhetoric, talking about revolution. Not political stuff. I mean, literally revolution, very focused language, inciting violence. Donald Trump was in contact with him clearly. We know that. There's no dispute that for the weeks leading up to January 6th. There's little doubt in my mind that Donald Trump and Steve Bannon worked together to incite that terrorist attack. If there's a question about that, Steve Bannon can testify under oath. We can hear the answers. He refused to because Donald Trump told him not to. Donald Trump can't have Steve Bannon. He cannot allow Steve Bannon to testify. If Steve Bannon disappears in the next few days or weeks, we will look to Donald Trump as the person who's involved in it. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, since Trump loves mafia bosses so much, if Steve Bannon were to disappear, we would look at Donald Trump as evidence number one. Just had a vote, though, in the House a short time ago. Only 9 out of over 200 Republicans in the House voted to hold Steve Bannon in criminal contempt for defying a subpoena with no valid basis whatsoever for this denial. The idea of executive privilege doesn't apply to a guy that has not worked in the White House for 4 years. But this is what we're talking about. Even the conversations that Trump was having with Steve Bannon were not when Steve Bannon worked in the White House. They were all afterwards. They were all about crimes. There's no protections for it whatsoever. Merrick Garland's got to do the right thing right now. But here's the reality. We can't count on Merrick Garland. We can't count on Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema to reform the filibuster to ensure we can pass the voting rights legislation. We can only count on ourselves. And we have to look to practical ways to protect our democracy from the greatest threat since World War II. And that is from this GOP, which again is not a political party. It is a fascist movement. The best case I could look at is what happened in the Czech Republic just last week. They had their own version of Donald Trump, a man who actually called himself the Donald Trump of the Czech Republic. He loved Trump. He praised him. He copied Trump. He was a billionaire. He spewed hateful rhetoric about immigrants, all the same garbage, accused of corruption, called it fake news. He was the Trump of the Czech Republic. How did they defeat him? Well, the other political parties that actually didn't agree with each other on politics put aside the ideology and formed a coalition that was pro-democracy or anti-that guy. Babish is his name. So they were concerned about his authoritarian inclinations, his hateful rhetoric, his divisiveness. So even the conservative and the very liberal parties joined together, and they were able to defeat him. It was a narrow victory, but they still defeated him. And I interviewed last week Stephen Levitsky, a professor from Harvard, who co-wrote the book, How Democracies Die. That actually was his prescription in his book from 2018. That time he gave an example of Austria. Now, I get America is not like a smaller European country, but the lesson is valid there. And we cannot just form a blue state coalition. That was a point Professor Levitsky made. We need to bring in people who are moderates and bring in even Republicans who have turned on this party and have left the party, who believe in democracy. We may disagree vehemently, passionately on policy, but we also agree passionately on defending our democracy. The good news is we are seeing sort of the emergence of that now. We just had an op-ed in the New York Times last week by Christy Todd Whitman, the former governor of Jersey, Miles Taylor, and 150 conservatives joining, literally saying to their Republican friends vote for a Democratic candidate over a Trump extremist. So there you have the makings of a coalition. We're not going to agree with them on policy issues, but we are going to agree on defending our democracy. That is part of it. There might be other ways as well, and I'd love to hear it. We'll talk about it on the show today. It might be, okay, don't form that coalition. Try to engage people who are not voting. We have millions of Americans who don't get involved at all, don't register to vote, giving up on the system. Is there a way to get them involved? Then massive victory for us. So we'll talk about that and more on my show. My show is live 6 to 9 p.m. on SiriusXM channel 127. If you're saying, well, I don't subscribe to SiriusXM, what can I do? Here's what you do. Go to the website. There are free trials. Check it out. Get a free trial. Then call into the show. Be part of our family. We have a lot of work. I say it every night, and I mean this sincerely. If you want democracy, stay active. Thanks for tuning into the preview of tonight's Dino Budala Show.